We all have a bit of a weird fascination with the apocalypse, but admittedly, sometimes end-of-the-world films let us down by giving us the same old thing we've seen before. We've had enough of the classic shoot-'em-up crusade or a zombie gore fest. We want something new. Luckily for us, there are still some films out there that can offer up a different experience. I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are 10 apocalypse horrors that broke all the rules. 10. Anna and the Apocalypse. As you'll soon see, this is not the only musical offering on this list, but it definitely is the only festive musical, and that's for good reason. Reason being that there aren't a whole lot of horror comedy musicals set at Christmas out there. It's a niche. Based at the beginning of an infectious zombie outbreak, Anna and her crew quickly realise that avoiding hordes of zombies isn't going to be as simple as waiting for the army evacuation. The army are zombies, the town are zombies, and before they know it, they might be too. They try to stick together and find their loved ones. The whole time, Anna's still talking about her plans to travel when she finishes school, as if the world isn't in the process of ending as she speaks. It has some really likeable characters and some great comedy moments with the musical elements entwined throughout. If you're sick of watching soul-crushing world-ending films, then this is a remedy for the heart. 9. The Road. Sometimes you want a film to make you absolutely miserable and ruin your week, and if that's what you're after this time, then The Road was practically made for you. You've likely heard stories or seen memes about this film, following a father and son duo struggling to survive in the world following a nondescript apocalypse event. With no beasts or monsters in this universe, the only enemies are the people themselves. And if zombie apocalypse stories like The Walking Dead have taught us anything, it's that people are infinitely more dangerous than any monster. A series of horrible events befall the father and son, from attacks and robberies right through to terrifying encounters with cannibals. The horror comes from the things they have to endure and the apparent hopelessness of it all. With so little left, nobody can be trusted and you could be killed at any minute by anyone. It's far from easy watching, so be warned. If you want to spend the rest of the week feeling like a shell of a human, then go right ahead. 8. Little Shop of Horrors. This goofy little number has been fascinating audiences since 1960, when it was first released as a book. Fast forward a few decades and it became a successful off-Broadway musical and film, which is where we come in. The film follows flower shop employee Seymour and his sentient bloodthirsty plant, Audrey 2. At first, Seymour doesn't know just how dangerous this plant is, but as it grows larger and demands more blood than he can feed it from himself, Seymour turns to murderous means. For most of the film, Audrey 2 isn't big enough to cause an apocalypse, despite that being what it wants. Even the ending that went to theatres would hint that everything works out okay. Here though, we're going to look at the cut ending. The original ending saw Audrey 2 kill Seymour and little Audrey plants be sold all across the globe, eventually uniting when strong enough to take over the planet. It really shouldn't work to have a musical horror movie about a flesh-hungry houseplant planning world domination, but as we sing along to the final song, Don't Feed the Plants, we know deep down it works just perfectly. 7. One Cut of the Dead. We've seen a movie inside a movie before, but not often with zombies. So what if I told you this was a movie inside a movie with zombies? I assume you'd be rightfully impressed. One Cut of the Dead follows a movie crew working on a new zombie film, who suddenly find themselves trapped out filming at an old water filtration plant when the real zombie apocalypse breaks out. With all the chaos of a zombie invasion and the confusion of the cast and crew, this comedy gem will exceed your expectations. You can obviously see the appeal of having real zombies chasing after people dressed like the deceased, but this film is more than just a couple of cheap gags. It's split into 3 different acts, with each revealing more about the last. If you think you know what you're in for with this one, you really don't. It uses tropes and assumptions to its advantage to give you a fresh, interesting take on the zombie apocalypse horror flick. Incredibly, it was made for the equivalent of just $25,000, and with an 100% certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, it really does give you a bang for your buck. 6. A Quiet Place. We're familiar with the tension of needing to keep quiet in apocalypse horrors. Usually it's so as to avoid attracting the attention of zombies or rogue groups of bandits. Well, A Quiet Place took this not just a step, but a leap further, introducing us into a world where you must stay absolutely silent in order to survive. Hunted by beasts who track based on sound, the Abbott family have adapted their lives to minimize any noise they make. They interact using sign language, take off their shoes when walking, and prepare as much soundproofing as they can for pregnant mother Evelyn's coming labour. It's tense in any movie not being able to cry out in pain if something happens, but in a world where even the smallest yell, or at times a particularly loud gasp, can get you ganked, the stakes are infinitely higher. It's a well-loved, award-winning film that we are eagerly awaiting the sequel to, and there is good reason for our excitement and support. 5. Train to Busan. When Train to Busan pulled up into the station, we saw that for once we were being offered something truly different. A zombie movie, but it's on a train, and it's actually good. Trapped together on a train going to, as you can guess, Busan, a group of survivors must endure a tense journey to the supposed quarantine zone. Attempts to disembark prove fruitless as passengers are soon overrun by zombies when leaving the train, so most of the film revolves entirely around that one vehicle. You may not think that it will be possible to build so much tension and so much connection to the characters when operating in such a confined environment, but trust me, it works. There's currently an American remake of the film in the works, but once you see the genius of the original, I can guarantee you won't want to waste your time on it. 4. The Night Eats the World. Being another zombie apocalypse movie, the breaking of the one main survival rule is what makes this film unique. Usually in the case of a zombie outbreak, people band together in groups of families or strangers, experienced or completely clueless. The point is that you should never stay alone, and that's exactly what protagonist Sam does, stay completely alone. To his credit, he's not stupid, just unfortunate. When he awakes one morning, he finds that overnight the whole of Paris has been conquered by a zombie virus, and after barricading himself inside an apartment for safety, he comes to realize he might be the only person left alive. A lot of zombie movie stereotypes are reworked for this film too, including the zombies being able to move at rapid pace and also remaining mostly silent, with none of the howling and moaning we've come to expect. With Sam being alone, the film takes a sympathetic and melancholic tone at times, seeing him try to exist in this bleak world and come to terms with how to move forward. It's a really interesting and different take on the zombie genre, with a great performance from Anders Danielson Lee as our main man Sam. 3. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's an oldie but a goldie. In the 50s, when this was released, apocalypse films were all about wars and nuclear annihilation, so this sticks out as something that dared to be different. A bunch of alien pods have landed in a field after traveling through space, and they're capable of replicating any living being. People are being replaced by exact copies of themselves, but the copies are completely devoid of emotion and humanity. At first, those who bring up their suspicions that something dodgy is going on are dismissed. It's blamed on the Capgras delusion, the irrational belief that your loved ones have been replaced by false versions of themselves. Well, this time it's not irrational. In a way, this film sits in the pre-apocalypse part of the timeline, as events unfold in time with the extraterrestrial world alterations slowly beginning to take their toll. People must convince the world of what's going on before it's too late to fix things, as soon enough the population will have been quietly replaced with stoic clone people. It's a bit like Stepford Wives, but on a wider scale and with less social commentary. Definitely worth a watch if you're after a classic horror with a twist. 2. Threads. Threads has been spoken about before on What Culture Horror, being dubbed the best post-apocalyptic horror movie you've never seen, and so it's more than earned its place on this list. Released in 1984, this film depicts the struggles of regular people trying to survive in post-apocalyptic Sheffield. After nuclear attacks leave half of the UK population immediately dead and millions more suffering with fatal radiation poisoning, the world as our characters know it is completely destroyed. Forced to live in squalor and in fear of fellow survivors in the military, our characters truly have no way of anticipating what horrors await them. It's a truly bleak, hopeless look at the dissolution of humanity, and it diverges from so many other horrors by virtue of its presentation. It's not full of action and explosions, there's no hero to fix things, and no hope for humanity in a savior with the solutions in hand. Instead, it's gritty and horrifying and unrelenting, forcing us to confront some of the very worst outcomes that we're often spared from seeing by Hollywood. 1. In the Mouth of Madness. This film introduces a concept for world annihilation that we're fairly sure you've never come across before. An evil book that turns readers mad and an author that wants to wipe out humanity by publishing it. Protagonist John Trent starts off the movie by telling us a story about how he was attacked by a madman. The man came at him with an axe after having been driven crazy by a book he read, the book being the latest manuscript from the author Sutter Kane, for whom he was was the agent. Trent is hired by a publishing agency to find Kane after he goes missing, not believing the stories that they've told him about how his books can turn people insane. It turns out that that's not all his books can do. It certainly is a fresh take on ending the world and is the third installment in John Carpenter's aptly named Apocalypse trilogy. What we learn from this is to never read the book, always just skip to the movie first. And on that note, we've reached the end of this list of 10 apocalypse horrors that broke all the rules. If you can think of any more rogue ones that should have been on this list, then let us know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.